Okay, we're going to talk about the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the law of priorities. This is a great one to talk about right now. And what John says is leaders understand that activity is not necessarily accomplishment. It's a great reminder for all of us. Activity is not necessarily accomplishment. Okay. I've talked to you guys about this before of, doesn't just because you're busy doesn't mean you're what? Productive.
Productive, yeah.
So just it's a good reminder for us all who have the temptations for that, right? And he goes into this 80-20 rule and of prioritization and prioritizing correctly. He says just do the top 2 of 10 and you'll get 80% return of everything you do in life. Okay. This is Pareto's law. So this whole idea of the 80-20 rule, it just really applies. Where you like, if I take most of my effort, 80% of my effort, and the 20% of the activities is going to produce 80% of the results.
Sure.
And we've seen this happen time and time again. The top 20% of your clients will produce 80% of your revenue. It just kind of works that way. And so think about that constantly as you're trying to go through this model of laying out your priorities. It's a battle. Me and my buddy talked about it this morning of just the daily battle of managing priorities. Okay. And that's one of our values is managing priorities, not what? Time. And so that is one of our values. And so because it's one of our values, we have to kind of know how do you go about that way of managing priorities in a way that is productive and produces results. So he talks about 3 R's, and these are really, really important. So write these down and put them up somewhere where you can remind yourself. I did that on I have a daily calibration I go through just to, kind of remind myself and go back through recalibrating. You know what calibrating is, Tom, right? So, just calibrating to get everything in alignment again. And so as I go through those things that remind me, okay, what am I doing? Where am I headed? And, is the first one is what is required of me? Okay, so that's the first thing you want to pull your priority funnel through. What is required of me? All of us have this. We have certain requirements that we have to do in our marriage, right? It's just stuff you got to do as a husband in your marriage. Okay, that's there's things in you with your kids when you have kids. Just you're required to do those things, right? And then at work, there's just certain things you have to do. It's like, I got to get this done. It's just a requirement. Okay, so you can just start with always pulling through, like, what is required of me at this moment? Okay, and in this bucket of time. The second one is what gives me the greatest return? Okay, so what's required of me, the first R. The second R is what is the greatest return for the priorities that I do? Okay. I'm always asking that. What's the 10x? You hear me say that. Is this a 10x or is this a 2x thing I'm doing, right? And I go through and I scan my day every day and I just go through and I'm like, that was a 2x, right? It happens still. I'm like, that was a 2x. Why did I do that? Right. But it happens, it's going to happen. And then you just constantly, so you keep reframing going, is this really the best use of my time? Right. And if it's not, you just have to kind of go, it's got to go away. So you got to look at the return. What is the best return for your priority? And then the third R is what it gives me the greatest reward. Okay, the greatest reward. And so, so I'll stop there. So think about those things. When I say gives me the greatest reward, what we're talking about there is your giftings.
Yeah.
Okay. And also your giftings / passions. Okay. So if you think about things you do that you're probably good at, that also gives you a high level of satisfaction. Okay, so think about those three things. I had a friend, I've told you about this before. He played football. He honestly probably could have gone pro. He had that kind of arm. He just could throw the ball. And I'm like, I don't know how you throw it that long. And I don't even know how you hit that accurate. I mean, he would just throw it down the field every time in the middle of the game. I'm like, oh my gosh, incredible athlete. He was really good at it. And I asked him one time at a party, I was like, you gotta just love this.
Yeah.
He's like, I hate it. I'm like, what?
I don't like,
And he quit, right? It's kind of sad, but that was okay because it was like he just hated it. And eventually over time, he realized it's like, I'm not gonna do it, you know? So we kind of have to keep asking ourselves, what am I really good at? What am I passionate about? Those two should sort of go hand in glove. You just feel like you're really good at, things come naturally for you. You're like, well, Dave, how do I get there? Well, it happens in several ways. Time, right? You just have to have time to get in and do things. Other people giving you feedback. I mean, you hear voices and like you hear Pat, like, oh, that seems to come out pretty clear a lot, you know, these things. And then I think assessment's helpful, and just reflection, like reflecting about things, is a good sort of good thing. So anyways, so those are some things to think about. So I'll pause there and get some feedback, comments about what you guys think about those things so far.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna say, I think it's a good filter, but as long as you still couple it with the, prioritize and do the top 2 out of 10, I think you could still get carried away there if you like what's required of me, and you get into like that laundry list mentality, like this, and you got to still focus on the top. You got to pare it down with the top 2 out of 10 still.
Yeah, 100%. Got to pare it down, cut the fat.
Sure, there's always a lot going on. So how do you prioritize the right 2 things to get those done to then lead to the other ones getting done?
100%. Yeah.
When you say the greatest reward, it can be personal and professional, correct?
Sure. Yeah, 100%. This applies everywhere, by the way. Like, we're not just talking work. Most of these leadership principles, Tom, you and I talked about this yesterday, applies personally. It's not just professionally. You know, when I lead at home too. It's still everywhere applies, right? And at church, I mean, it's all over. I was at church yesterday applying leadership principles, right? So it applies everywhere you go. And so it's a fight every day to discipline yourself to say, what are those top 2 or 3 things I really should be doing above all else? And that's why I said on Friday with probably a little bit more vigor, but I was like, this is the priority.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. Like, everything else kind of falls below this. Not that it doesn't matter. It's just, if you get this done, then move on and go to the next thing you think is the top 2 things you should be doing, and so on and so forth. So that is honestly one of the hardest things, but it is one of the most important things to get really nailed. Is this law of priority. And really the way you do it is just preparation, quite frankly. You don't just show up in the day and go, I'm ready to go. You spend some time either at the end or the beginning of the day, I do both, and just prepare. How's my day going to go? What's going on? What should I be spending my time? That's the highest likelihood. It's no guarantee that you'll actually probably do this better if you're prepared for it, I would say.
Agreed.
So, and he says here, prioritize your life based upon your values. Okay, what is important to you? It's who you are. The mission, what you must do to hit the top 20%. Those are those activities, right? And then strengths, what you do well. You want to eventually move into a place where your strengths are most utilized. Okay. You want to utilize your strength between 60 to 70% of your time. They say not 100, because you're always just going to have other things you have to do. And also you'd get bored. So, you know, you need a little bit of mix up for that. So, and then there's 5 things people need to be successful in life. Okay, here they are. He calls it CLEAR. The acronym is CLEAR. Communication. If you're prioritizing being a better communicator, is critical, right, to be successful. Leadership. We talk about this a ton. Leadership development. E is for equipping and empowering. So this is equipping other people to, you know, take ownership, to enable them to act, right? Just empowering, equipping other people to be leaders. Attitude, he says, the better attitude I have, the better I can overcome. So working on your attitude is a discipline that will take you very far.
True.
We did this around our table. We've been seeing a lot of unthanksgiving at our house over the last couple of weeks. So we spent a lot of time Sunday night going through Thanksgiving. What are we thankful for? Like we just had to go through 5 things we were thankful for each person, right? And the whole demeanor changed. But that's a discipline to work on your attitude as if you want to grow. And then the final one is relationship. So people will go along with me if they can get along with you. So the final one is just relationship. So those 5 things are things you should prioritize to some degree to get better at. Communication, leadership, equipping, attitude, and relationship. Okay. So any comments or thoughts around these things, or how do you think you could, what do you think you could take away from this that you could actually apply this week, you think?
I think communication and attitude are going to be the keys.
Yeah.
Without communication, you're going to lose a lot of track of what's progress you're making, or
Yes.
you kind of get a lot lost in the middle, and then that leads to more problems.
Yeah.
And then attitude is going to be key, because, you know, when you have a positive attitude, it impacts things beyond you personally. It goes to others.
Yeah.
And then if you have a negative attitude, we all know how that goes.
Yeah.
So
100%.
well, they all are obviously important.
Yeah, of
I just
course.
think that those 2 right now are really critical.
Yeah.
As we're building this process and going through the motions, we're communicating a lot.
Yeah.
And we also have to have a good attitude, because if we don't, we're just never gonna get it done.
Yeah. 100%. Yep.
I
Attitude.
think the big one for me was the attitude, you know, having the right attitude and everything, you know, whether it be a meeting you're going to, a call that you're taking, you know, when you think about leadership, when you're an independent contributor and stuff like that, somebody could easily say, oh, I don't need to be a leader, you know, but that's not true. You should lead by example, you know, because you never know who's watching, or, you know, again, going back to that attitude, to the right behaviors every day.
Yeah. 100%. So true. Tom, what about you?
I think it's communication, and then equip and empower, I think, is critical right now too. You know, not just with like, obviously you've got a lot of changes going on and things need to move and happen, but you know, so equipping and empowering, make sure everybody's comfortable making changes, but also making sure that everybody's like comfortable saying they don't understand the changes, or they don't have, you know, the space for the changes, or they don't you know, there's lack of understanding, not just empowerment to act, but empowerment to ask the questions, and, you know, the trust there.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think they do all apply. I think for me, it's definitely communication, continuing to go back and say, okay, am I communicating well? Do I communicate more? Is there something that's not clear? Right? Just fighting for clarity. That just is a daily battle. And it is attitude. You know, I mean, I have to go back all the time and check my own attitude. Am I having a bad attitude? Am I good attitude? You guys saw a little bit about this weekend. Just, it's constantly just checking my own and your perspectives. You know, it's going back and rewiring your perspectives on things too, to see things not as, you know, I've been going through that myself, of just seeing things and going, okay, this actually is an opportunity, not an obligation. And it's a great thing to kind of rewire how you see things. And it'll have different outcomes on your attitude when you start to see like, oh, this is an opportunity to grow,
Yeah.
as opposed to, oh, this sucks and I hate it. And, so it's good. It's a good thing to remember for all of us, for sure.
Agreed.
Okay, good. Well, that's your